You made it in crypto. You've made a ton of money, but now you want to figure out how to maintain that generational wealth and grow it over an extended period of time. And today in this video, we're going to talk about the 3 things that you need to be looking at for the additional investments that you're going to be making over your lifetime. So like I said, you've made it in crypto, or you've sold your business, you've had a liquidity event, you've made a bunch of money selling an asset, right? Whether that was a business, a property, an investment, whatever it was, or you still have that asset, you have a life insurance policy, you've set some things up, you have some cash flow, you have some excess income to start investing. What are we looking at to make sure that we're doing this the right way? Well, for myself, there are 3 things that I'm always looking for when it comes to an investment. The first thing is real ROI, or real return on investment. So these are investments that are going to do better than inflation. Since 2020, there's been a lot of things that have made a lot of money. Tesla, Nvidia, you've got GameStop and AMC, and there's been a bunch of things in between then and now that have had parabolic gains in a very short period of time, including Dogecoin and other digital assets. So if you made a bunch of money on any one of those, that's great. You had real ROI, right? So you had returns on something that did better than the inflation that was going on in the economy. Right now, inflation's back down to around 2%, which is the Fed's mandate, and that's great. However, real inflation is actually, with technological advancements, it's still probably somewhere between 6 and 8% per year. And that's been that way since the early 2000s. As we've seen the advent of new technologies, those are inherently deflationary. And because of that, to maintain the 2% inflation that the Fed has a mandate for, they've had to print a lot of money, sometimes, somewhere between 7 and 10% of the M2 money supply per year in order to maintain that 2% inflation. So we want real ROI. Traditionally, indexes in the stock market, real estate, those things tend to be correlated to inflation. So they maintain their purchasing value from the moment that you invested in them. Now, you can obviously find discrepancies and disparities and opportunities in those sectors. And there are periods where they outperform inflation. There are also periods where they do not. We're in one of those right now for stocks. Things are down. Real estate's down. Watches are down. There's a lot of things that are down in value, even though we still have that 2% inflation. So we want to find assets and invest in things that are going to have real ROI and upside, even when there is a downturn in the economy. Separate of that, number 2 that we're looking for is going to be cash flow. We want some type of cash flow or some way to be able to put that asset to work in a way that generates cash flow for you or compounds at least the returns on that asset. Ideally, cash flow. If you're investing in a business, obviously there's cash flows there. If you're investing in a real estate property, raw land developments tend to take a little bit longer. But aside from that, if it's a multifamily, commercial, residential, there's a lot of opportunities in real estate for that cash flow. And that's why a lot of people invest their money there. You also get a lot of tax benefits, which is a second consideration here on the cash flow side. You want to make sure that ideally there is some accelerated depreciation or ways to be able to offset that income that you're making with those assets. You could use cost seg when it comes to real estate properties. Within a business, there's a bunch of ways that you can spend that capital and get accelerated depreciation to offset that income. And those are always considerations as well. But ideally, you've got, again, real ROI, number 1. Number 2, some type of cash flow off of the investment. This could be dividend paying stocks. This could be an annuity. This could be a lot of different things that pay you some type of residual income. And then lastly, the third thing that I'm always looking for when I'm making investments, aside from the cash flow and the real ROI, is the ability to or pull my equity back out or draw down debt against the instrument or the asset that continues to appreciate in value. You have some way to refinance it and use it as collateral. So these are all things that you want to take into consideration when you're making investments. And if you don't have the capability to do one or a couple of those things, it may not be the best investment. We've got XRP here. And for a long time, the only opportunity on XRP has just been real ROI. It's seen, enough price appreciation to beat the inflation rate, but there really wasn't any way to be able to borrow against it. or for you to be able to generate returns on it. But that's all changed with Digital Wealth Partners and Digital Ascension Group. We put together things that allow you to do both of those. So now you get to have your cake and eat it too. Where XRP, we could see potentially a lot of upside in that asset, not financial advice. But alongside that, we've been able to put together ways to be able to borrow against the asset in institutional grade custody where it's insured. And then alongside that, other ways that we can put it to work to be able to generate cash returns and also compounding returns on that asset. Still working on ways to be able to mitigate taxes from, those types of returns and the way that we're structuring that. But we're hopeful that that'll be the case as well. And so again, just these are always the considerations that I'm looking at when I'm making strategic investments and will continue to use as the frame moving forward on the other side of price appreciation for a lot of these digital assets as well.